Dropping the untold stories of industry leaders, influencers, and insights on future innovation. I'm John Davidson, and this is the DLC Drop Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the DLC Drop Podcast. It is my pleasure to welcome my friend and mentor, not really a mentor, more a friend, Chris Mann, former pro gamer, the first pro gamer to be on this podcast, former COO of Esports Apparel, and currently the COO of Subnation. Welcome, Chris.
Hello. Thank you, John. Appreciate you having me here, obviously. And I would like to say that we are each other's mentor. So I appreciate you and you appreciate me, right?
Very much so. Very much so. Actually, I'm really excited to have you on because I don't know if I've shared this with you, but my perspective of you is like, I think you're such a unique guy because you have such an in-depth experience with gaming and esports, like on the pro level. Like, we'll show the nerd scar. You know, mothers take your children away from the.
Is that my cue? This is said nerd scar right here.
Dang.
It is long. It's looking particularly lush today. But yeah, no, this is cubital tunnel syndrome. This is what happens when you ignore ergonomics and think that you are Superman and play video games for, I don't know, let's just say 20 hours a day kind of situation.
Dang.
For many years. Oh, yes.
You need some sleep,
so it was a casual
brother.
thing. It was casual, right?
Pretty casual. So yeah, you have this like really interesting story like within gaming, but you have amazing experience, knowledge from a business perspective. I love calling you and I get advice from you all the time, or love to bounce ideas off of you. And so that's super rare, you know? And so I'm glad to have you here and drop some knowledge on our audience.
I appreciate that, man. I know this is getting rolling. So like I said, absolute an honor and a privilege and pleasure to be here. I look forward to getting into it with you here and letting the world know about what we talk about privately, of course.
Well, we won't tell everybody about all the things we talk about privately, but what we will talk about is how we first met. So I'm always interested to hear another person's perspective of the situation. So let's see. I had become really good friends with Nate over at Alt. We met at Esports Rising, and I was like, man, we need to get this stuff into GameStop because I was just such a fan of the brand. I was like,
show the shirt you have on right now.
You know,
rep. Destroyer of Worlds. That was from our second drop with Zoomies, actually.
Nice.
The skate shop. Yep.
Yeah, I love this shirt, but I got to be careful when to wear it. Like for the audience here. It's a little scary. I wore it one time. I have a 5-year-old son. Shout out Johnny 2.0. 2.0 because he's the better version of me. But I wore this shirt one time when I picked him up, and he looked at me like a little stunned, and I was like, oh, yeah, sorry, this shirt's a little scary.
Sure. Certainly on the edgier side of some of Nate's amazing designs that he's still putting out. You know, I'm excited for his new line coming too pretty soon, right?
Yeah, Reset coming soon. I'm excited about it too. So yeah, I met you. You guys came out to Dallas. We had an unsuccessful pitch.
We tried.
GameStop. We sure tried. My goodness, I thought we had you guys sold in, and oh my goodness, some of the feedback from that meeting of like the merch dudes. Like
I don't even want to know.
We went
through a lot, as I'm sure Nate has told you on his episode, with trying to open up the category. You know, so
yeah.
Strange to think that, you know, a gaming store having gaming products that are awesome and modern and wearable, you know, weird fit, right?
It doesn't make sense in my mind. In fact, so I'm going to tell you one of the pieces of feedback, and you're going to probably stab yourself in the face with a fork.
Okay.
Which was, I just don't get it. You know, like maybe if there was like a pouch to hold a controller or something in the jacket.
Oh boy. Technical wear in gaming and esports. That is one of my least like staring off over at it's like the 10-mile stare right now. Yeah, I'm just going to say yes.
And absolutely. I will say, I'm not throwing shade at GameStop because I love my friends at GameStop, I'm just throwing shade at one individual who will remain nameless for that terrible take. And it's like, yeah, you never know when a match is going to break out, just like,
you gotta just bust it out. I wish I had a controller to just grab right now. I don't, but yeah,
yeah,
you can never be too ready, right?
never. Oh my gosh. So yeah, and then let's see, we hung out, we went over to the GameStop Performance Center. I believe the sign had just gone up.
Yeah, it wasn't even open yet to the public. This was about a month before. But yeah, it was my first trip to Frisco, and
Yeah.
just seeing your whole world. It was amazing.
We had nachos. That's what, like, I think also kicked off Nacho Nate was on that trip. He literally had nachos every meal.
There was definitely lunch and dinner nachos one day. I'm not gonna lie, I was slightly concerned, but it's all good. He's as we used to call our internal little marketing company that we had, Dad Bots. So we were working on Dad Bots. It's totally normal, right?
Incredible. I'm working on mine. It's getting better every day.
Same.
So take me back. So you've got this incredible journey. You've been a pro player, number one ranked at one point until you were overtaken by a population of people in the Southeast Asia. Is that right?
That's true. Yeah. That is correct. Yeah, it was interesting because growing up, I obviously identify as a gamer, as a lifelong gamer, primarily first and foremost. I was one of three sons in a family that was really focused on music and the music business, both on the talent side as well as the label side.
Cool.
And look, honestly, I went through my stint of band management and, played around in the music world for a while, but I'm deeply passionate about music, but never as much as I was about video games. So when I was growing up, gaming really gave me that outlet, to connect with my friends locally first. And then we started online multiplayer. I was very fortunate growing up in that, we had pretty decent internet connections out of the house because my dad did a lot of work there. And so online multiplayer games was really, instead of playing TV, I would go home, do my homework, go play in the street, and then we'd get dark, and then we'd all just hop on the computer and start grinding, Age of Empires or Command and Conquer. I was a real-time strategy junkie back in the day when I was younger. Thus, StarCraft being, a natural evolution of the Warcraft series. And that was the first thing I took very seriously. Yeah.
And so what age was that when you were like, man, this is something I want to do?
It was high school for me. So I was, going into high school, freshman, junior year, was really when the gaming thing started to take off for me. I always was a little bit better than my friends growing up. My older brother, infamously, I would let him win so that I wouldn't get beat up, right? I would always get punched by him. It's pretty typical, older brother, younger brother dichotomy. But excuse me. Basically, yeah, I don't know. When you look at a game, you kind of look at the mechanics behind it, but I don't play games first just to enjoy and play the game, which is kind of strange. It's sort of like a blessing and a curse. I look at the game, I try to figure out the mechanic. I try to look for, repeating patterns or themes, sometimes bugs, and using them to create competitive advantages to crush your enemies. I was that weird kid growing up quoting Sun Tzu, yelling the Art of War quotes, when I was in junior high. I think my parents were slightly concerned about all of that, but no, it obviously translated, and here I am. I'm a professional mom and dad. I told you it would turn into something here.
Yeah, rather than hearing profanities coming through the wall, they hear Art of War quotes, and they're like, "Oh, we really got to do something about this video game thing." That's amazing.
Yeah, so it was a fun initial journey, but yes, StarCraft, as I said, was the first game I took really seriously. I was number one on the U.S. ladders and then the global ladders, GM ranked. This was back in the days before, being a pro player. I'll never forget this moment. Esports obviously wasn't really a thing at this point. It wasn't conceived of, but I always knew I wanted a career in gaming. So I remember NVIDIA sent me a graphics card at one point. Nice. And I thought to myself, is this it? Like I'm sponsored, I'm a pro gamer now. I got a graphics card. So back in the year
Oh,
2000,
I can relate.
that's what it meant at that point. So I like to think that, if I was 2 decades younger, that we'd be having a different conversation right now.
Man, like I can so relate through my skateboarding. I remember, I was always sending sponsor me tapes out to board companies and stuff. And
Hmm.
when I got a board from Think Skateboards, Think Skateboards was from San Francisco, and one of their riders skated for the same, one of their pros skated for the same skate shop that I did. And they sent me a board, but they sent me a note and they were like, keep it up. You need to get a little better. Here's a board. And I thought I was sponsored by him. I was like 14, and it was my first freeboard that I ever got, and I broke it like within 5 minutes of skating. I was skating like a 7 stair and like I think kickflip, and my foot landed in the middle, and boards break sometimes when you're jumping
Smashed
downstairs.
it. So when you hit them up for a second one, they said, yeah, no, there's a local store you could go buy one at, right?
Well, the skate shop, I was sponsored by a skate shop, and I was their first rider. So my sponsorship kind of evolved over time, and it was a little bit of a pain point too. Like, hey, what should John get? And this whole thing. And this was really before everybody was like nowadays everybody's sponsored. Back then it was like rumored that like one dude was sponsored who lived one town away. So it also helped that I grew up in a small town. So, it's not like I was like leading the charge in skateboarding sponsorship. It was that I lived in a very small town where, things hadn't progressed to that level. But the owner of the skate shop called the company and is like, hey, did you sponsor my dude John? And they're like, no, we just sent him a board. And I was like, oh,
Wah, wah.
womp womp. Okay, so
Yeah.
NVIDIA graphics card. What was the
Yep.
next step of success in this epic journey?
I was graduating high school, going into college, all the rage at that point. I'm not embarrassed to admit I was a heavily, heavily addicted EverQuest junkie.
Okay.
So, I was MMORPGing, going into, it was a little more casual, a little less hardcore. And by the way, part of what we talked about earlier, I fully attribute to StarCraft, right? I kind of joke that, this cubital tunnel syndrome thing is what 450 actions per minute, which was sort of my peak, right? APM is the measurement of how quickly you can micromanage and macro inside StarCraft, right? So 450 APM, 2 decades later means nerve damage and surgery, right? So this is one of the early learnings that I think our industry is having about the shelf life of people that are hyper competitive in specific games, and looking at, and borrowing basically from traditional sports, right? Sports medicine, sports therapy, like all of that stuff. I'm so glad that, modern day esports athletes, really pro athletes is what I consider them, have the same, in some cases, the same access to that kind of medical and wellness and lifestyle kind of well-being stuff that we didn't have 2 decades ago.
Yeah, I think, you see complexity, I think, is like the leader in that. And, these guys are eating at the same table as the Cowboys football players. But what was a trip to me, I used to live right next to the Star in Frisco. So I would go over there all the time because I was like, just seeing that tangible sign, dude. Like when I'm in Frisco nowadays, I'll just drive by just to look at the sign. And I'm like, yeah, it's still there. I told Jason Lake that like if GameStop doesn't renew the the naming rights deal when it's over, I was like, let me get a letter, like let me get the G, or the G, S, and P and C because we call it GSPC. Like,
sure,
even the garage, dude, that'd be epic. I would have that forever.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go out and say you deserve that. So
thank you.
If that ends up going missing somehow, though, I have nothing to do with it, and neither do you. So just wanted to throw that out there for the world.
Well, when I went to PRG, I was like, joking about like taking down all the letters except for the PR and the G. That would have been epic.
Oh man!
So
it was interesting, right? Because as I was getting into college, right? I went to USC for a couple years, and
Trojans.
And yep, go Trojans. I actually transferred out of USC as a junior.
Oh, here we go.
It wasn't really the school. The school itself wasn't a problem. the neighborhood kind of got me. I'm not gonna lie. My second year, first year, you live on campus. The first year as a freshman, they have enough housing for that. But
Okay.
sophomore year, you're kind of on your own.
Okay.
And this is back like 2001, right? Actually, the year that 9/11 happened, I was a freshman in my dorm at USC, living in
Oh
downtown
man.
LA, and it was really really strange, being in a major metropolitan area during that really tragic time. But
Yeah.
um, the neighborhood there was a little rough. So as a sophomore, I lived one block behind where all the fraternities and sorority houses were. I wasn't a Greek guy there. So I was sort of an independent dude. And yeah, the neighborhood kind of got the better of me. I'm not lying when I say I was mugged more than 5 times. My apartment was broken into twice. My car, I'm pretty sure there were folks living in it every night. It was a carport under my apartment. I could hear them
Yikes.
opening it. It was a weird year. So I decided to take my
Man.
things and go to the beach. And I transferred to Loyola Marymount for the rest of my undergrad. And that's when I started getting really serious about my career. Not serious enough that I obviously didn't finish school, but I at that point was starting. I was in sort of like the modern day mailroom equivalent in the gaming world. So
Yeah.
I was a QA, quality assurance tester for mobile games for Sony Pictures, working for $10 an hour. And
That sounds like a dream job for a college
it
kid.
was awesome, man. It was awesome. I'm
They're
not gonna lie.
playing
Like
they're paying you to play video games to make sure they're good, right?
yeah, it's fun for about a week, and then when you play Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy or the New York Times crossword puzzle for your 8,000th time, in
Yeah.
1 month, you're kind of like, well, this kind of sucks.
The reality of the fantasy.
Yeah,
It's like,
right. So
oh,
when I was in college, it was great because it was easy, it was casual, it was, I don't want to say mindless, but it was the right kind of work for me at the time. When I graduated from Loyola Marymount, I actually went back to Sony Pictures. I stopped working there for a little bit because my elbow was starting to hurt. That was the beginning phases of my pre-surgery time when I couldn't even hold a cell phone in my left arm. So I stopped working as a cell phone game
I was
tester.
gonna say this is
Yeah,
like
it wasn't good. I remember
holding
I
you
was
back.
holding like a Motorola, a V3, the first little the
Oh, I used
small
to sell
razor
cell
thin
phones.
phone.
I know them. Oh
You
yeah,
know them well, right? Yeah, I
I
used to know
do.
every make and model from every carrier. And I couldn't hold. Well, if you make games for them, you got to know them all, right?
Right.
I couldn't even hold the phone. It was just sliding out of my hand. I was losing all of my grip. So I went to my boss and said, I don't think I can do this anymore. I can't even hold this phone right now. This kind of sucks. So
Did
I
you
took the
did you have an issue with like dropping things on the regular, like you're like eat
no.
like coffee and like food?
I it was at that time it was mostly just the cell phones from work.
Okay.
As I think back on it, I'm sure there were other moments, and my wife would certainly tell you that it hasn't gotten any better. I'll tell you that. But I certainly haven't dropped my 3-year-old son ever. So there's that. That's the only thing I've ever been worried about with this is how am I going to hold and carry my child.
Right.
But I'm pleased to say that it's been successful so far.
Well, glad to hear it.
Yeah. So anyway, I got really serious after I graduated and went back in with the same job. And within about, my time at Sony Pictures was really special. I was one of the first employees doing mobile entertainment at the studio. So the level of access that granted us, I mean, man, we were basically reporting to like divisional presidents as very young
Wow.
people with zero work experience whatsoever. And so I grew up professionally very quickly. My
Yeah.
most formative years were at Sony Pictures, reporting to some of the brightest, best people that I've ever worked with. And I believe in many ways that was my launching pad to, actually taking one step back. I back in, right around 2000, 2001, when we were starting to apply for colleges at that point,
Yeah.
it turned into, I was pretty active with what today is known as Team Liquid, but this was before Team Liquid became, Team Liquid. It was a gaming community centered around StarCraft, and we loved the game so much. The
Yeah.
guys like Dan and Artosis and Total Biscuit, and even a lot of the casting characters that we still interface with on the regular today in this industry. They're old StarCraft cronies of mine, which is pretty funny. But
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
remember thinking to myself that it was time to, get serious and go get a real job. Because graphics card doesn't pay the bills, right? Right. And there
Yeah.
was no actual money in it at this time. So I remember thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to go work as a game tester. And so I went really crazy in my 20s on my career, and tried to accelerate it as much as I possibly could in the true gamer fashion, just grinding.
Yeah, that's super cool, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, I mean, I've always seen you as somebody who's like really senior as far as just your understanding of like business and stuff, and I value that a lot every time I talk to you. And so that makes sense that early on in your career you had people modeling that for you. And it sounds too like you were aware of it at the time.
Hmm.
So is it accurate that you were actively paying attention and seeing how these executives operated and picking up things from them?
Yeah. Yeah, pretty frequently. I mean, I learned a lot about what not to do, to be honest with you. I got a little bit lucky too. I mean, they say, yeah,
It's
luck.
better be lucky than good.
Sometimes, right? Sometimes, right place, right time. In
Yeah,
some cases, and I was very fortunate to be in the right job as a junior person who was really close to the doing. Not a lot of people understood what it took
right.
to put video games on cell phones at the time. I mean, we did some amazing stuff. Like we adapted the very first Sony PlayStation IP with Ratchet and Clank. I'll never
Yeah,
forget this. We convinced our one of our parent, like, so Sony Pictures obviously is owned by Sony, corporation, and there's lots of
right,
subsidiaries of that. And Sony Computer Entertainment America is PlayStation, right? So
right.
back then, it was unheard of as it for a Japanese company. Really, a lot of the Asian game developers and publishers, they didn't believe in mobile at the time because, look, imagine
Huh.
putting this beautiful creation and this amazing art and everything that you're doing onto a screen that's like
Tiny screen.
this big.
Yeah,
Like that,
that's really
it
interesting.
wasn't a thing. So we had to fight, really hard, quite frankly. And it wasn't even about business at that point. It was just about extending the relationship with emerging consumers. So innovation has always been sort of at the forefront of what I prioritize in my career. Like, how can I learn about things and invent and create as we go?
Yeah.
I made that comment about finishing school. I learned a lot of good things in school, but when you sit at I mean, I hate to say things like bleeding edge, but like when you sit on the emerging side of new industries that are driven by technology and advances in tech, you have to come up with new creative ways, not just to build products and design experiences, but to commercialize businesses around it. And I'll
Right.
never forget thinking back to, I used to have to cross the picket line as a young professional during the writer's strike, with Sony Pictures, and these guys would look at
Oh,
me
interesting.
and they're like,
Yeah.
"What are you doing? Like, what you're exploiting us?" And it's like, no, guys, like we're trying to figure out digital. At the time, we were losing a lot of money, from a
Yeah.
P&L perspective, and I didn't even know what those two letters meant at that point. But what I did know was
What do
that
they mean? I'm
profits and losses, John. We can do a whole segment on that. I've
okay.
got some good
Hold
people
on.
that could definitely come on and help you with that.
I
Actually,
got it.
all seriousness, like I think it'd be really fun to do something around like financial planning and all of that. Because if I knew the things I
Oh
knew
yeah,
today
that
20
sounds like a
years
lot
ago.
of fun. That sounds like the most fun to do something around financial planning.
Let's just move on. Let's just move on to the next topic.
Well, this was a great episode,
Thank
folks.
you. Really great to have you on, have me on today. I crushed it for you. Best guest yet.
No, keep going.
Yeah.
I just like
So
to give you a hard time.
it's all good, man. I get it. It's an abusive relationships, but
Yeah.
remember, it's a two-way street. So as I was evolving into my, the young version of who I became today, I actually diverged away from games for a little while. Back at
Hmm.
Sony, look, mobile games became a big thing. Like I was starting to say, I got lucky early on. The mecca of mobile gaming at the time. This was pre iPhone. Back when
Yeah.
like the BlackBerry still was actually blue and had that thing on the side with the red blinking dot. When we were
What
making
was
game.
what was like the big mobile game at the time?
Oh boy.
Snake. That was, dude. In high
No,
school, it was
it
Snake.
was
I don't know if
Snake.
that
It
qualifies.
was Snake. So Snake was preloaded. So everybody played Snake because it was just there, right, on
On the
everybody's phone.
Nokias.
That's
Yeah.
right. The ones with the candy bars that you'd flip out, like the front, the
Oh
customization
yeah.
on the whatever those things were called, the little plastic pieces. You'd accessorize them.
Faceplates.
The
Oh yeah.
faceplates. I bet you accessorize your faceplate to your outfit, right?
I did not actually because I had an Ericsson phone, so I've always
Okay.
like zigged when everyone else is zagging, you know.
I like that,
And
man.
so it's just like for better or for worse, like I had like a different phone than
Well,
everybody else.
you know, the number one game, a mobile game that used to vex us all the time because it was Electronic Arts, it was EA, and it was Tetris, right? So Tetris
Yeah,
was number one every week, all the time. But you know,
yeah,
we had our own IP that could contend with that from time to time. So our big title that would do really well was Wheel of Fortune when I was at Sony. At Wheel of
interesting.
Fortune, as we all know, it's 8 to 80, amazing game. But yeah, we could knock down Tetris like maybe 1 week a month, to be the
Okay,
top selling game. And every single time, I'll never forget, there was this guy named Bernard Kim, who's now like some super uber powerful executive at Zynga. He's got cool hair. He's crazy. But Bernard would get so upset every single time we would overtake Tetris that EA would ratchet up their marketing spend and like
incredible.
start spiffing everybody out and getting crazy. So I learned really young that it was more than just uh, just doing what you needed to do to like get your game out there and do the marketing. It was who and how you can get featured, and he got his own category for the game. So it was, man, the mobile game wars were pretty brutal and ruthless. We actually have a group that we call the mobile old timers, for all the
That's
people that
funny.
were creating content at that point. But anyway, right after that whole episode, around the mobile game sphere and iPhone started to come out, stuff like that, we actually started moving down a video path, so digital video networks. I was part of the team that helped launch Crackle. So before Sony
Yeah.
had Crackle, we actually acquired a company called Grouper in Sausalito, and we brought them down. There was another company that we were evaluating at the time. It was either Grouper or it was a little company called YouTube, right? This is pre-Google's acquisition of YouTube.
YouTube?
Exactly.
YouTube?
YouTube. So they were basically the same thing at the time. Online
Oh
video
my gosh.
portal, similar
Yeah.
size. There was a $2 million difference in the purchase price between the two of them. So we bought the cheaper one. And look, Google made YouTube what YouTube was today.
Of course. Yeah.
I'm proud of what Crackle eventually became, but
We'd all be crackling instead of YouTubing.
Crackling, yeah, right.
I want to be a crackler. That's like, dude, this close to every kid across the
Saying
world saying, I want to
crackling?
be a crackler.
Yeah, I don't know if it has the same sort of ring, but maybe we're just conditioned for that.
Yeah.
So I spent a while going down the digital video networks path, launching mobile channels, like live TV on feature phones. There used to be this old phone that had an antenna that was literally this big that would come out of the phone. It was amazing. It was this thing called Media Flow, if anybody remembers that, but I'm definitely
Oh,
dating
interesting.
myself. So anyhow, I spent a long time doing digital video networks, which was sort of the evolution of digital content at the time. It was ringtones, wallpapers, then games, then
Yep.
actually video on your phone. So, shortly after that,
Interesting.
I was recruited. I grew pretty quick at Sony Pictures. Like when you're
Yeah.
a small fish in a big pond, but in a
Yeah.
startup there, you just keep getting like the next job and the next job as the business started to grow. And
Cool.
I hit you talked about Snake earlier. We had a whole slate of games that we would sell. But I got to know a contact at Motorola really well. And we ended up preloading, it was like 5 or 6 games on that Razer phone that we talked about earlier, the little thin
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
That was one of the best selling mobile phones in history, right?
Oh, yes.
And so we got lucky because every unit of that phone that shipped, our games came preloaded on it, just like Snake was on Nokia, right?
Dang.
And
Dude,
so
having a
we
razor was the
we got
move back in the
they
day.
did like
Yeah.
500 million units, and we were getting paid like I'm not sure I'm allowed to say how much, but we were
Yeah.
getting paid like a low double-digit amount per phone that those games were getting
Wow.
preloaded on. So, in one deal, our
It's
entire
incredible.
business went from making about $1 million a month selling on carriers to to us not caring as much about the carriers anymore and only wanting to work with the manufacturers at that point. So
Right.
these are some of the fun things that you get into when you're working in emerging tech and working with great IP. That was the last time that I worked for what I want to say like is was a large company, like a big brand that was really
Yeah.
established. I learned at that time that I was the kind of guy that liked to build, or
Okay.
bring
Yep.
order into chaos a little bit. So I got recruited out of Sony by Mandalay Entertainment, who had just launched a new
Mm.
company called Mandalay Media. This is where things start to get a little weird. So if they hadn't been already. So
Okay, hold on to your britches, folks. Here we go.
right. So I got recruited out. Basically, I hit my ceiling at Sony because I got so many promotions in the 5-6 years I was there. Because I started as a QA guy, and I
Right.
peaked as like a product manager, account manager, whatever. Like corporate control thresholds. I was promoted too many times in a short amount of time.
And
So
then the leap to the next one was just like, that's not an option.
correct, right?
Yeah.
And so, my bosses were cool with it because they knew, well, yeah, of course Chris becomes the next, yeah, it's Chris. He's running the thing. He does that. I was working with
Yeah.
great people. But I'll never forget getting called into the building where they filmed Running Man and Arnold, like, at Sony Picture Studios, like he
Yeah.
actually slid down the glass there. That was called SPP. I got summoned to SPP, which was where all the executives sat. Right, we were in some little building off to the side in Culver City. So I get summoned to SPP by basically someone in the HR function, and
Yeah.
she was maybe the boss of HR at the studio. And she says to me, I walk into her office and she goes, "Chris, why do you think you're more special than anyone else who's ever worked here?" And I was so taken aback. I'm like, what? Like, what? No, I'm not. Like, why would you say that? That's insane. And she goes, I hear that you're up
Wow.
for a promotion to director and you're too young and your salary band, and like giving me all these reasons why it couldn't happen. By the way, I didn't even know that this was a thing. Right. So from
Yeah.
my perspective, I'm just like, cool. I guess I'm getting a promotion again. Like, hell yeah, that's great. I had 8 business cards in the 6 years I was there because they shuffled our group around so much. So it's like, who's my
Oh,
boss
well.
today? Awesome, great. We were just
Yeah.
doing our thing. But yeah, she basically hazed me to the point where she's like, you're not getting any more promotions while I'm in my job here. And I'll never forget. But the president of my division, I heard his name was Mike. He came clodding up the hallway, slams her door open, and he goes, "Chris, get up and get out right now." And I'm going,
Okay.
okay, like you do, like
Yeah.
you disappear into the back. Um,
The
and
Homer in
I
the
just,
bushes.
yeah, exactly, right, yeah, just get me away from there, just erase me. It was so
Yeah.
awkward. And as I was leaving, he slammed the door and just like ripped into her. And I remember thinking to myself, well, this is really toxic, like all up. I don't want anything to do with any of this. So
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I took a different job offer at that time. And, these guys had just purchased a company that I guess they didn't do a lot of due diligence on because there was a lot of revenue and it was in mobile video. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I boring you, Josh?
I'm tired, man. I woke up at 4 a.m. this today. I've been
Sounds
so
like a
much stuff
personal
I'm doing right
problem.
now.
Sounds like a
It's
personal
it's
problem,
it's a lot. It is. The one satisfaction I have is that I ruined your video game this morning
Oh yeah,
via
can we
text
talk about that
message.
for a second?
Yeah.
So you called me actually, which wasn't too. I mean, it was 7 a.m. my time. I was
No, it was like 8:15.
no,
I want
no,
to say.
no. We can check. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I was
Uh,
in my morning ritual. I'm playing this game right now. This mobile game called World War Doe. It's this little indie game developer called Jam City.
yeah.
They're awesome. But yeah, I'm currently ranked very high, like possibly the best rank you can have in the game.
Well, you
And
were.
what I was, yeah, one of the rubs of mobile games is when people call you and you're in the middle of a round,
Uh-huh.
you lose, you know? So I remember thinking, what did I do? I think I took a screenshot of it saying I abandoned the match and sent it to you. And then I just started, trying to make you feel bad, but you didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was glad my boy hit
No.
me up. So it's all good.
Made my day.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's going to take me all night to get back to that spot. So it's okay. I'll
I'm
get there.
I'm comfortable with that. Yeah. I'll sleep
And
well tonight.
I hope so, man. I hope so. So look, what I learned at Sony was you need to sometimes you need to just go, right? Like
Yeah.
even though amazing opportunities abound, the corporate structure sometimes is counterintuitive to young talent that's growing quickly, right?
True.
Which is why I made the decision that I wasn't going to work for large companies maybe ever again, honestly.
Well, and there's different types of people, I think. Like, I mean, that was definitely something that I identified at GameStop. I was like, I'm just not a big bureaucracy company guy.
Mhm.
And it's nothing against GameStop. It's more just my skills and my strengths and weaknesses is like, I'm not good at, like, it makes me want to pound my face against a wall when you have to like meet with this department about this
Yeah.
thing and then this department about this thing and then this department about this thing. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like,
Mhm.
just all the work that it takes to get anything done. And then there's the being under leadership, where it's like priorities of the business, right? And it's like, hey guys, I got this great idea that's going to like change the world. Well, the priorities of the business right now. And it's like,
You're like, I don't want to hear
oh my
that.
gosh.
That just is a no, right? It's just
Yeah. And I'm a type of guy,
no.
like, I like to, I don't know, I don't want to pump myself up too much, but I feel like vision, like seeing what can be,
Mhm.
seeing how people can collaborate is one of my strengths. And I had this epiphany the other day as and this was like right after I launched my company, DLC. And so dlcyouth.com. Plug. So, I realized, wait a minute, if you work in especially a big company and you have one boss, you're limited to that person's vision, and so like to sell them the idea or for them to get it. If it's somebody who's just an operator who like they're not a visionary sort of a person and you can't convince them that like this thing you want to do, you're out of chances. But if you do your own thing, you have the entire world to go to say, to find the people who get it. And
Mhm.
Gary Vaynerchuk, he said something on, one of his many content pieces. And he said, time trying to convince somebody who doesn't get it is time you're not spending with someone who gets it.
Mm.
And that was like an unlock for me. And so that's why through that experience, long story short, I figured out like, man, big company, the big bureaucracy. Some people do it very well. They're made for it.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
hats off to them, but that is not my thing at
I
all.
call them lifers, man. There were so many Sony lifers, that
Yeah.
wanted to just to retire there. And I respect that. That's amazing. But I think that to your point, I mean, I started to realize that I was really into inventing and making and creating and building net new. And it's hard to be inside a startup, inside a large company, right? It's obviously
Well, in
like,
what
for
ways?
instance, like,
I'm curious.
yeah,
Because
so
I know
like,
some people who love that because
sure.
it lowers the risk. It's like you get to be entrepreneurial, but there's no risk.
Well, okay. Look, when
So
your back's up against a wall, right?
Yeah.
What I learned when I traveled internationally for the first time by myself, when I neglected to make I think it was like a hostel reservation or something. I did that one of those things where you just put a backpack on and you go, right? Like that same day. And
That's awesome.
that night when I landed, I went to Barcelona and I remembered, I'm like, where am I? No, I was in Madrid. Where am I going to sleep? And I remember thinking to myself, this is literally the first time in my life. And I mean, what a privileged life I had. But this is the first time that I have to figure this out for myself. And like, no one's going to help me with anything. I'm in a foreign country. I mean, I spoke a little bit of Spanish, but it just
Un poquito.
Un poquito,
Yeah.
más o menos. But look, the bottom line was, there are a lot of great things about being inside a big corporation and driving innovation there. Don't get me wrong, right?
Health
It's
insurance being number
health
one, but
insurance
yeah.
and salary and, you know, stable cash positions as a company and all of these things that you take for granted until
Yes,
you start your own business, or until you go into managing a startup that is in an early stage, like a growth phase, or even like an early capital raising phase. So I just realized at that point, and getting back to your question, actually, I think some of the challenges in being inside an innovation function at a large company is I don't want to paint with too big of a broad stroke, a large brush here, but I
sure.
just feel like when you have to figure something out, you mentioned complexity earlier. Jason Lake is one of my favorite stories. I really hope you have him on this thing. That guy
Yeah.
was up to death's door with complexity, before him
Yeah.
and Jerry Jones figured it out. And like, look at them now. I mean, they built a GameStop Performance Center with you, and all
Right.
these other things. And I just don't think that you have to figure things out at a certain point. You might lose your job, but then what, you get like a severance package, and you have the golden
Oh
parachute and all
yeah.
that. There's just something about not having a safety net and what you're capable of doing when you have to do it and your
Oh,
survival
absolutely.
is on the line. Your creativity, your passion, your hunger, and that's the word, actually. That you got to be hungry. And I'm not
It's human
saying,
behavior, right?
yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly. So,
I, I yeah, I was gonna say I can relate. Like from a skateboarding perspective,
yeah,
what's
tell
kind of
me.
funny is like the times in my life where my life is easier, I don't skate as well because I'm
Mm,
not really into put it on the line.
sure.
Like when my life has been rough or like I went through like a breakup or something, and I'm just
Yeah, you're
like
raw.
the most important thing to me in life is landing that trick, and it's like the pain doesn't even matter at that point, and it's like just go for it. And then like when I got my first like salary job and everything, I was like, "Hey, if I don't jump down this set of stairs, my life is still pretty nice." Like
Sure.
I have,
You
like
got
where I
that. You got that
live.
medical insurance to go take care of your twisted ankle. Yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you what, probably the most I don't know if surreal is the right word, but the most like on a mission moment I ever had. There was this handrail. I have a picture of it, of the trick I did, but this handrail at the community college I grew up um next to, Reedley College, Reedley in Central California near Fresno.
Mm.
And it's a 7-stair rail and it goes down and then it has a kink, so it goes way out. So um and there's a big pillar at the end, so you can't skate it like off the end. So a no slide is really the only possible trick. But I'd been wanting to do this trick for so long, and I called my friend up who's the photographer, and I remember like before I went, I found my insurance card because I was like, if I have to go to the hospital,
You
I
got
need
it on
this.
you. It's in your pocket,
Yeah, it
right?
just like I don't know if like maybe that's a foreign thought to people, but it was just like funny looking back to think like I was so prepared to go to the hospital expecting like I'm probably gonna get wrecked, but I need to go for it. And I landed it. I landed the
Yeah,
trick.
that's what
Yeah.
happens, man. It's because you had to. You were ready.
Yeah.
You were
You
ready
had
to
to. Yeah.
roll. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not trying to dump on people that they're in innovation jobs and big firms. Like, small
No, no.
companies
Yeah.
need big companies to survive. It's a huge part of the ecosystem.
Sure.
But I realize that my favorite part about being the small guy, is that you can move faster. That's the bottom line. Like,
Absolute. Oh,
agility
absolutely.
and dexterity and the ability to be autonomous. To your point earlier about all the bureaucracy that you were dealing with in previous roles that you had as well.
Yeah.
It's just nice. It's really nice to be able to make a decision and literally the same day begin on that journey. Right. That's what I liked
Yeah.
about
I,
it.
I mean, I used to work at a design studio, and we'd be pitching like big brands against agencies, and it,
Hmm.
it was it was just like to be nimble is such a strength. And also the direct path of communication where it's like, hey, you're talking to the creative director or or the person like doing the actual project every time you talk to us.
Mhm.
And if you need to change, we're changing it. We're not having meetings about meetings. We don't, all of
Right.
these things.
Yep.
Now there's resources. Like I think like data analytics is probably one of the bigger things that a big agency or a big company like brings to the table that a lot of times a small company can't. Those
Mhm.
tools that are expensive that all the agencies buy and stuff like that, or just like
Right. All
the head
the
count.
research reports that cost like $150,000 a year or something like
Oh
that, or
my
even
god,
more.
I'm in the wrong business, dude. Yeah, big
You're
time.
telling me. Shout
We
out to
figured it
New
out.
Zoo. New Zoo.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, no, you're absolutely right. Like that ability to pivot, yeah, to be so nimble. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but it's a massive strength.
It's true. By the way, I was just thinking back since we were talking about my early career at Sony. I have one funny story that came out of that. So
Yeah.
when I was, I was the young guy on the team or whatever, working for a lot of executives, both amazing men and women. And so my bag, right? I had this, had a little briefcase that I carried around because I was professional, right? I was adulting, I was young, I was figuring it out, all perception, right? My dad got me like a fun gift.
Amazing.
So
Yeah.
inside this briefcase or in my backpack when I was traveling, they, at least 20 phones, at least, because we were in mobile entertainment. So it's like, you needed it. It's like, here, look at this, check this out, look at this. They're all preloaded. You got all your stuff, right? So I'll never forget. I had this because I was
I know
traveling
where this is
so
going. Yeah.
frequently. The TSA hated me. They were convinced that I was a drug dealer, like 100% convinced. And they gave me
Amazing.
the hardest time every time. And one guy would like turn them all on. And he's like, if you know what's on this phone, what are the 3 games that are on the home screen? And it's like,
Oh
it
my
became like a whole
goodness.
thing. So yeah, I was the drug dealing, mobile content guy. And other people would see me that were traveling to the same conference because they heard the stories. This probably
Yeah.
I'm not exact. This probably happened 10 times, in two
Amazing.
years at this point. I think it was the same officer too.
He's
Anyway,
like, you again, huh?
you again. I'm gonna get you this time, you druggie.
Well, it made it a lot harder to smuggle drugs, I think
I
is what
know.
you're
I
getting
had
at,
to
right? I
stop.
mean,
Yeah. I mean,
my
it was a bummer.
goodness.
My
It's like
income dropped drastically. Oh
talk about a
man.
startup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I went to run an innovation, a design and innovation focused software firm after that called
Yeah.
Icon Mobile. It was part of WPP. It was going to be my 1 year in the agency land. I
Yeah.
had worked on the brand side like you did at GameStop, with Sony Pictures and all these cool brands that we had. And I always heard about agencies and didn't really know anything about them. So I'm like,
It's
yeah,
cool to work
cool.
there.
Yeah, I'll go be an agency dude for a minute. You were marketing arm, right?
Yeah, TMA. Yep.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So, what turned out to be what I thought was going to be like a year or two for me,
Yeah.
I blinked twice, and it was 6 years, right?
Whoa.
And it was probably we did so many cool things at that point, that we probably don't have time to get into all that, but building the future of a lot of industries, connected products. The biggest project that I worked on there was reinventing, the oral care category and smart toothbrushes and you know, basically quantification of, the time spent while brushing, but taking and building a data ecosystem with other partners. So let me say this in like more normal speak and
Please, I'm
not crazy
already
rhetoric.
confused.
Yeah, sorry.
You lost me
Um,
at toothbrushes.
there are these things you put in, and it's
Oh,
oral
yeah.
health. Yeah,
I'm going to
that
this.
you're supposed to brush your teeth 2 minutes in the morning and 2 minutes in the evening every day, 4 total minutes. Okay, so you got
I'm
to
going to
work
add
on
that to my P&L note.
Good. You're learning all kinds of things, right?
Dude, this is very beneficial for me. Yes.
So yeah, we actually took like the average brushing time, which back in when we started was about 58 seconds per session, to
Sure.
2 minutes and 20 seconds because of what we built. Because it was
Based on people's just awareness of how long they were doing it and how
um,
long they should be doing it or what?
partially, we built an experience that really helped teach them more about, about their mouth and their teeth and all. I know so much more about oral care than I ever thought that I would, to be totally honest
Right.
with you. But it was really cool. We built this sound algorithm with the Fraunhofer Institute, which are the guys who birthed the digital format of music. They're the guys who created the MP3, right?
Okay.
And they built this sound algorithm that listened for the frequency of which the power brush, like a rechargeable electric toothbrush, when you turn it on, they make like that zzz, like that really loud buzzing sound.
Right.
So
Yep.
we programmed a mobile device and a mobile application for Oral-B that could pick up that frequency, and it would start and stop a timer that was inside the app. So like, who cares, right? It's an R&D thing. But as we got a little more advanced, what started with a sound algorithm went into Bluetooth. So now there's a Bluetooth chip in each handle. There's a lot more we could do from like a data perspective and
Yeah.
experience perspective. Eventually we started using your camera, so we knew where in your mouth you were brushing and where you were negligent, and we could deliver reports back to you that said, hey, you need to add another 30 seconds to your upper right quadrant because you're not spending enough time there. And it was like
Wow.
this machine learning AI thing that really worked for people. So
How much
yeah,
did that toothbrush cost?
at the time, it was
$1 billion.
it was like 299 for starters, but it's now the commonplace one. All you go into Costco or Sam's Club, and that's how you know that things are commoditized pretty heavily. A lot of those handles have the
Right.
Bluetooth chip in them now too, and they pair with
Yeah.
the phone. But the reason
I
I
still
bring
use the toothbrush where you move your arm. I mean, that's where my nerd scar's from.
Get with the times, man. I gotta send you one of these new ones.
I'm a late adopter.
I'm a
Yeah.
late adopter. Oh boy. We got to work on that. We'll take that offline. But my
Appreciate
whole
that.
point in this whole thing, right, was that we were generating data, right? And it wasn't like evil empire data, like put on your tinfoil hat data. It was just like, did you get to the 2 minutes or not twice a day? And
Right.
somehow this data became increasingly more relevant as like big data was starting to come, and we were building an ecosystem of partnerships. I'll give you one good example and then we can move on.
Yeah.
Banking and oral care. Like, what relationship do these industries have with each other? Like, very
Well, it sounds like you may need to take out a loan for that toothbrush.
Well done. You are snazzy today. I like it. On point.
Watch out. DLC Drop Podcast coming at you.
plug. So bottom line, we created this data exchange where, let's say you're a parent. You got a 5-year-old kid. How hard is it to get him to brush his teeth? It's hard, right?
Dude, I scrub his teeth like you wouldn't believe, because he's had quite a few needs for fillings.
Okay.
So I'm brushing his teeth, and he is for sure getting 2 minutes twice a day.
What happens when he takes over, though? Right? It's hard.
Right. I mean, it's not much is happening. So I'm trying to like pass it over, but I'm like, my mom sees me do it. She's like, that kid's got the cleanest teeth. I'm like, yeah.
At some point you're just gonna have to rip the Band-Aid off. But there is help. I will send you some references and some resources. We built experiences, like if he likes Disney characters, or if there's certain fun characters, like we literally built a mirror. And I mean, this happens on your phone too, but towards my end of this time, we were building smart mirrors that it would look exactly like we're looking right now, but it would basically be like a full screen television experience all around you. And we could turn kids into their favorite character over the 2 minutes. So like, imagine like a Disney princess theme.
Oh, they don't want it to end. They're like,
yeah, they just sit there and they're like, keep going, like.
The only downside is they're only brushing one side of their
right.
mouth.
They're not even moving. They're just like my kid does. He just sits there chewing on it.
Right.
But anyway, just to finish my thought, parents are trying to get their kids to brush. So we felt we had a good way, through a fun game experience for them to do that, transforming them into their favorite characters. It was called the Disney Magic Timer app. It pairs with cool toothbrushes. It unlocks different, scenes and characters if you scan it. You've probably seen it. It's all over the place now. But from my perspective, the data for the adults, and for the kids was the most important part. We did this deal with this German bank called Erste Bank. It was the first one that we could pilot it with. And the deal was, if we could deliver to them a weekly report that says that, little Johnny or little Susie brushed their teeth perfectly for 7 days that week, and mom or dad or whoever opened a college savings account for them, then the bank was actually depositing money into the kid's savings account to reward their compliance with brushing the right way. So the kids had a fun game. The parents were getting paid for their kids' college tuition
It's incredible.
in a cool account there. And like, why would the bank do that? Think about it, right? If you open
Right.
a
Loyalty.
savings
Yeah.
account for your kid, what's going to happen? You're not going to change it. You're just going to keep it there for the next
Of
18
course.
years. So,
Of course.
their cost to acquire a new customer for them, the LTV, the lifetime value on that, was substantially higher than, them just getting some brushing data. So that's just a good
Interesting.
kind of tangible example of the stuff that I was doing prior to deciding to really jump down the esports rabbit hole, pretty deep. We can get
No, I
into all
love
of
that. That's incredibly fascinating that you had the opportunity to do that stuff.
it. Hmm.
So we talked about the past. To end this episode, I want you to share with our audience, what should we be looking forward to? What do you see? What is the thing that either people need to know about
Hmm.
that's nobody's talking about that they should,
Yep.
or what's the next big thing coming?
That's a great question. I've been really fortunate recently, after that agency experience. I was working with some brilliant people, at Ultimate and the clothing brand Ult. Shout out to Nate and JB and Colin and all you guys. But um, you know, lifestyle and culture, right now, the number one thing that excites me, I say this all the time, it's one of the most exciting times to be alive and be a fan of video games. Honestly,
Hmm.
there's not a lot of great reasons, this year to really celebrate. We're all just kind of getting through, but
It's literally the only reason
yeah,
is that
right.
you can stay home and play video games.
Pretty
But
much.
yes,
I was joking with some of my old friends, like, well, current friends, but we're kind of conditioned for this stay at home life as gamers. Like I mentioned earlier, I played video games on a
trure.
computer for 20 hours a day. So,
Right.
you're
Well,
sitting at
even
home.
even the esports industry, like, when I was at PRG when this all hit, and so everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, how are we going to do like events without people, and how are we going to do,
Mhm.
excuse me, traditional sports without fans?" And it's like esports is like, "Hold my beer. I've been doing this for 20 years. In
Totally.
fact, this year we were trying to figure out how to do events with fans.
Right,
Like
right. The
that's our problem."
localization, no, it didn't work. But there's always
Yeah.
next year for that. There's always next year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
look, for me, this notion of gaming culture becoming mainstream
Yeah.
across the globe is the thing that is just getting me up in the morning and keeping me up every night too. Because it's like
Yep.
I feel this sense of urgency. There's so many great people, inside our gaming and esports ecosystems, relatively speaking, that are doing this. Startups and net new brands like Ult that we talked about earlier, and a handful of other endemic brands on the apparel side. But for
Yeah.
me, I feel like the big opportunity still, and this is what sort of drove me to my current role with Subnation, right? As we mentioned earlier, I'm the COO at Subnation, which is a gaming culture and esports lifestyle company. Man, content and media this upcoming year and really into
Yeah.
2022, gaming video content for the masses. And I don't mean putting video games on TV, that's been done. But for
Right.
mass market audiences, like narrative and scripted and real, like just reality television driven programming across the grid, influenced and
Yeah.
inspired by gaming content and culture is what I'm doing right now. And
It's amazing.
if you look at even companies like Amazon, Amazon obviously bought Twitch. In my opinion, the mothership didn't necessarily know how to integrate with it. They were using it to sell more things, but I see
Right.
Amazon coming in a bigger way. I would predict that they're going to make a very large acquisition of something that is sitting independent. Maybe it's in the same state as where they are currently.
Mm.
But ultimately, the thing that I'm most excited about is to be a key voice. I've been very fortunate enough to just land in a role and be part of this industry as we're evolving and forming it. That I get to be a voice about gaming culture. How does it integrate across different verticals? Movies,
Yeah.
music, fashion, lifestyle, action sports, which I know is one that's really near and dear to your heart. Something you and
Right.
I talk about quite a bit. So
Yeah.
I think gaming culture mainstreaming is the number one trend that I'm working on and that I'm the most excited about in this fun little world that we both live and work in.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think we'll definitely look forward to 2021. Hopefully it's a little different from this year, but I love that. Yeah, just thinking about how gaming can influence culture. And I think the biggest thing nowadays is like the cool kids are gamers,
Yeah, it's true.
and the cool kids game, like, I mean, you have like traditional sports athletes. I mean, these guys are taking consoles with them on trips and everything. And it's like for one, it's not just like, oh, gamers are cool. It's like, no, everybody's gaming and it's cool.
Right.
Which is awesome. So it's going to be awesome to see how it grows. So before I let you go here, anything you want to plug, any way you want people to follow you?
The other thing that I'm really excited about, with regards to where the esports world is relative to traditional sports, is having been a big part of launching several major esports brands inside Overwatch League and Call of Duty League. We're really building the future of sports right now, which is a little polarizing, but definitely a really amazing time, both on the culture side as well as the future of sports and what that means for, our youth generation growing up. So with all that said, again, I'm just beyond stoked. John, thank you for having me on DLC Drop. I'm so happy for you on your new journey. Obviously, I've got my own thing going on. We're doing some stuff together too. Check out Subnation. Subnation.gg is our hub, at SubnationGG across most social networks. And of course, you can find me at Sedale on Twitter. And I'm just looking forward to more of these episodes, man. I can't wait to see you start dropping. I think you said this was episode 10. So looking forward to seeing the 9 before this and the 1,000 that come after this. So thank you again, my man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of the DLC Drop podcast. Our esteemed guest, Chris Mann, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, man. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the DLC Drop podcast. This podcast is part of the Esports Future I Podcast Network and produced by Innovation Media Enterprises. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast channel and leave us a review.